Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Dan Rockwood.
And this is Collateral Gaming with...
Victims and Villains, where we talk nerd, we talk hope, and we speak nothing else.
Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. And welcome once again to another edition of Game Launch on Collateral Gaming. We have a title that we have been highly anticipating for quite a while now, and joining us for this episode is Mr. Dan Rockwood from Victims and Villains. How are you doing, Dan?
I am great. If Legend of Zelda wasn't coming out this year, this would be my most anticipated game of 2023. I'm having a blast with it, and I'm so excited to talk about it today.
Fuck it, A. Same here. I think I could pretty much echo your sentiments there. Well, okay, there's a few games that I'm like really anticipating.
It's a good year for games. We got a lot of good releases to look forward to.
100%, yeah, because there was this. There's Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Tears of the Kingdom, which is obviously my most anticipated, and let's see, Hogwarts Legacy, and I think there was something else that I was really excited about too. Dead Space remake, yeah.
And then on the Xbox side, we've got Redfall coming up. We got Starfield coming this fall. Sony's got Spider-Man 2. I mean, it's going to be a stacked season for us. I'm excited if we do like an end of year wrap up in December. There's going to be a lot to talk about.
I was actually thinking of doing something along those lines, especially to cover, some of the games that came out that maybe we didn't get a chance to talk about, or maybe a similar thing on Collateral Cinema with new movies. So that actually would be cool. That's a great idea. But if you didn't read the title of this episode before listening, this is our review on the Resident Evil 4 remake, which just came out this month, or I guess last month, I should say. As it is April 1st. And wow, yeah, this title has been very, very, very highly anticipated for a while now. We're going to get into it here in a bit. That being said, though, Mr. Dan, you had the fortune of being able to go to PAX East, didn't you?
I did. Going to events and conventions is one of my favorite things, and PAX East this year was a really great time. Nintendo was present. They weren't showing anything new. High hopes was they would maybe have this first be a public look at a Tears of the Kingdom gameplay demo, but nothing there. They had just a multiversus like arena area with games that have already been released, but a lot of really great indie titles, which PAX has really become a great place for indie developers to shine. So it was nice going there and playing these games and talking with the developers. I had a really great time.
Awesome. Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. I was really happy to hear that you had the chance to go there. I mean, what really stuck out to you?
There were a couple of games that are going to be going up as part of our, best of E3 list over at Tech Raptor. One is a game called Fort Solace, which is a third-person adventure narrative game. It has a very highly skilled voice acting cast, including Troy Baker is involved with this project. And this follows a character, his name is Jack Leary, who is on a mining outpost on Mars. And a bunch of stuff goes wrong, and he needs to explore and survive. And it's fully designed around the storytelling. I spoke with the game director, James Tinsdale, and he told me that this is a game where he wanted it to be accessible for people. So they wanted to make it able to be finished without too much of a barrier to entry. He said you could sit down a few evenings and play through this game and get the story, or if you want to watch someone on a stream do it, it's a perfect type of game for that as well. So this is going to be more of almost like the demo that I played was definitely like a walking simulator esque, but there are some puzzles to solve and there's some mysteries to uncover. So Fort Solace is definitely a big one that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for. There isn't a release date announced yet, but we should be seeing it later this year.
Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome, man. And yeah, what an incredible opportunity to be able to go and see that in person this last weekend, man. I'm jealous.
Oh man, it was such a good time. If you're ever able to come up here, and I know Texas, you guys used to have PAX South, and now PAX South doesn't exist anymore, which is sad.
Yeah, that is sad. Also, another more sad news is we're not getting an E3 this year. So,
Yeah, I don't want to bring the whole podcast down. So like I was going to E3 this year. This is going to be my first opportunity ever. This is a lifelong dream. And I feel like I've had the rug pulled out from under me a little bit with this. So I'm like recovering and mourning. The really complicated part, I already purchased my flights and they're non-refundable. So I need to figure out what I'm going to be doing logistically and financially there. So things are a little up in the air for me, but yeah, I'm bummed about E3. It's such a great event. Jeff Keighley is still doing his Summer Games Fest. IGN's going to be doing Summer of Gaming. We're going to be getting some announcements and some events, but it's just not the same. E3 was such a great time for the industry to come together, both as games media and also it was a time for different developers and publishers to come together and actually meet in person and do business and get things going for the latter half of the year. So, will we see E3 return in the future? I really hope so. Again, it's a goal of mine. I don't care if it's just like a ball pit and then one developer. Like I want to go and be able to, have that opportunity. So we'll see maybe next year if Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft, I mean, probably not Sony, but maybe Nintendo and Microsoft, if they have more to show and more demos, they might be interested in attending. But I think if they try to do it again next year and there is as little interest as there is this year, the writing's on the wall that the industry is shifting and E3 isn't really meeting the needs of it anymore, which sucks because I love it and selfishly I want E3 to last forever and ever. So we'll see how that goes. But the PAX conventions have been really what E3 should be shifting towards, and especially the focus on the indie side of things has been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a bummer, man. Wow. To be ready to go and then to have the rug pulled out from under you like that. But I mean, we already knew that both of the big three companies weren't going to be there. So I was kind of wondering like what kind of E3 are we going to have if Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are not there? So, I mean, I guess it was going to be a chance for, a lot of third-party developers, indie developers, but we'll see what happens next year. Obviously, we did end up getting that Nintendo Direct at least, so that was cool. And look forward to seeing what Sony and Microsoft have to kind of make up for that this year. But we are here to talk about the new remake of Resident Evil 4, just came out. And Dan, I believe you told me that RE4 is your favorite Resident Evil game, right?
It is my favorite Resident Evil. It's a top 5 favorite game of all time for me. I've lost count of how many times I've beaten this game, but it was at least 10 or more times on GameCube when it first came out. I got it on Wii and beat it multiple times there. I got the PC like HD remaster edition. I only beat it once on there because I didn't really like the keyboard controls. I got it on Switch and I beat it 6 or 7 times on Switch. And I even, because it was on sale for $5, I got like the PS4 version, and I haven't beaten that version, but I played through most of the way of it. So I was extremely excited when they announced the remake. I was hoping this was the direction that Capcom was going to be going in. The Resident Evil 2 remake just nailed it so well. The Resident Evil 3 remake was good, definitely had its own issues, but overall, I like that game. So when they were doing Resident Evil 4, I could not wait for it. And having being so familiar with the original is really nice to see some of the surprises that are in store in this one. Ash, I had thought that you had had some experience with Resident Evil 4, but prior to talking before we recorded, you have not beaten the game as many times as I have. I don't think this is fairly new for you, right?
Yeah, so actually, I have never beat the original Resident Evil 4. This is, I'll give you a little bit of history. So, back a couple years ago, when we were doing this podcast, I had actually never even touched a Resident Evil game. And this was only like I said, like a couple of years ago. But Halloween was coming up. I wanted to do a bonus round episode, Halloween focus. So I thought, yeah, it's a perfect chance to finally actually get into this franchise. So I'm looking here on what was previously the PlayStation Now catalog, and Resident Evil 4 was on there. So I started to stream it, and I gotta say that the controls really threw me off. As a first Resident Evil experience, the whole not being able to move while aiming thing, and just these weird controls where it was you're holding down L1 and hitting the square to shoot, and it was very weird to me, and I just really couldn't get the hang of it. I got to the village segment, which is obviously the biggest difficulty curve in the game. Couldn't get past it, was wasting all my resources because, again, I had not really played a Resident Evil game before, so I gave up on it, and I actually started playing way through Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and I had a much better time with that, I guess, as it's a more accessible game to modern gamers. And and I actually was really, really into it. So I had a positive light on the series, and it was kind of just a pin I put there. I will revisit Resident Evil 4 later. Well, fast forward some time later, this season we actually did have a chance to go back and play through some of the early Resident Evil games. I mean, obviously we did our episode on the original Resident Evil 2 and the remake, which you were on. And we even did a bonus round episode where we actually played the original Resident Evil Director's Cut. I also had installed the remake of Resident Evil 1, and I've played through both the original and the remake. I've played through both the original and the remake Resident Evil 2, so I was definitely more accustomed to those tank controls, and just the older style of gameplay, which really helped when I revisited the original Resident Evil 4 recently. I tried to play that version that's on PlayStation Now, but I had some issues with it. I found out that it wasn't the best version of the game. Of course, now it's on PlayStation Plus, but there's a couple different versions. You can install Resident Evil 4 on the PS4, but then there's also the version that you can stream, but you can't download for some reason from PlayStation Plus. I think the premium tier. So, again, didn't really get too far. Got to the village again, kind of didn't really get it. But the other day, in fact, in anticipation for this episode, I decided to look and see what it was running on Switch, and Capcom was actually running a sale recently. So Resident Evil 4 on the Switch was $10, and I actually had just enough points saved up that it was actually free for me to install. So I did. I've now reached the villa. That part where, at least in the remake, you had to board up the windows and all that, and all these enemies coming back and forth, and you and Luis are fighting them. So I actually got to that point in the original game, and actually had a much better time with it. I was definitely enjoying it a lot more. I think the version on Switch is actually pretty good. I actually appreciate that they changed the control scheme to be a little bit more similar to what you might expect in a modern Resident Evil game. So, holding down ZL and pressing ZR to shoot, way better. Thank you for doing that, Nintendo. And the original control scheme is there if you prefer it. But I actually did get a chance to kind of play through the original. And it was really cool because I actually had already played quite a bit through the remake. So I was kind of comparing and contrasting and seeing what was changed here. And I mean, the overall like layout of the game and where you go is pretty much the same. But I've noticed, where they would expand on the remake and change a couple of things. And I thought that was actually really cool to play the remake first up to a certain point and then go back and play the original.
Resident Evil 4 is one of the most well-loved and well-remembered games that people will return to time and again. It released in 2005, and you mentioned, Ash, that the control scheme of the original, especially the stop and pop mechanic of you can't shoot and move at the same time, it definitely has thrown a lot of people off, especially in a modern setting. So to have this be able to come out, just nail the tone of the original Resident Evil 4 and also adapt on it in so many ways. I didn't know exactly how they were going to change it or how different it was going to be. I am more familiar with this game than maybe any other game. It's like this game in Ocarina of Time, I don't ever need to think while playing. I can just play through the entire game and go from objective to objective, and there's never really a question of what I need to do next. I always know where the next item is, where the next dungeon is. In Resident Evil 4, where the next like pathway to get around is. So there are a lot of things that I'm familiar with in this game. And there are areas that are definitely modeled pretty much the same. The village area in the beginning, which serves as a really good level check,
Yes.
that has been largely kept the same. But then there are areas like the lake, which is extremely different. The lake is this big, sprawling exploration like playground now. And there were several hours that I spent just going around and getting treasures and finding secrets and things in the lake. And so there's a lot where players who are very familiar with the game, like me, have areas that they can kind of breeze through and they recognize exactly. And then there are other parts that are different, or you take a different pathway to get to an area that's familiar. There was a boss battle with the village chief that I knew was coming up, and I knew I was getting close to that part of the game. But in the original, there's like this big ski lift scene that you have to go through to get down to where he is.
Yeah.
And the remake removed that. And so I was kind of expecting or looking out for something like that. And then next thing I know, I'm in the house and I'm looking around. I was like, wait a second, this is where the battle happens. And then the cutscene started and he came in and I had to fight him. So stuff like that, it just catches me off guard. Like I don't think I'm about to get into a boss battle, and then I do. So that stuff has been cool. And it's just been fun. Like Resident Evil is such a fun game and one of the best games when it comes to replayability. And I definitely intend to play Resident Evil 4, the remake, many, many times over. And I'm hoping to platinum it. But I'm looking at the trophy list, and some of those are pretty ridiculous. There's one where you have to go through and not use a single herb in your entire playthrough. There's one where you have to go through with only a handgun. And then there are all the ones that carried over from the old game of needing to beat it under a certain amount of time and kind of needing to speed run it. So there are a lot of challenges that I'm happy that I have time to kind of chip away at this trophy list, but this is one that will definitely take me a good while to achieve.
Yeah, no, there is actually a lot to do here. And I bet that a lot of those trophies are kind of dependent on being able to replay the game a few times, because I know that that's, a pretty big staple of the series is being able to come in and replay with all these new weapons that you wouldn't have access to in the original game, or even, kind of like New Game Plus and like bringing your other weapons in. So I'm looking forward to further replays. Currently, I am not finished with the game. I got to the castle, so I got to the Grand Hall area, and the part where you get to play as Ashley for a little bit. We're going to try to keep this spoiler-free in terms of story, but I don't think that that's too big of a spoiler. So, yeah, you get to play as Ashley for a little bit, and you were mentioning that they actually changed that a little bit and actually added more to do while you were playing as Ashley, like the whole being able to shine the flashlight on the suits of armor was new, right?
Exactly, yeah. So for people familiar with the original game, you'll remember when you start to play as Ashley, you are going up against these knights of armor that have been infested with the Las Plagas, and so you can't fight against them. You just have to run away. And there are some other like minor enemies that you need to deal with too. And she does have some some limited combat abilities in the original game. You can pick up a lamp and throw it at an enemy to light them on fire. In this one, you have a lamp that emits like a blue flame light, and the Plagas can get frozen by that light. So you have a little bit of a defensive move right up front with you. So going through that part of the game, they made it more interesting. They also expanded it a bit. So there's like a cool library area that you can explore. And this is where Resident Evil 4, the original, got away from the survival horror and made it more action. This does a really good job of combining the two. And this is a really good section that, if you're in the right mood, this is a very creepy, like scary section where you don't have your weapons and you are going around this library and like looking between the stacks, and you can hear the enemies like moving and walking and searching for you. So there are some really cool things that's being done in that scene, and I'm happy that they did that, because the actually part of the game was never my favorite part, and this made it at least a little bit more interesting for me to play. So it's they did a good job with that, and they also turned Ashley into a more useful character. She's less of just like someone you need to babysit now, and more like her own well-defined character who is going to be, you know, useful. And in this scene, she is trying to get back to Leon, and trying to, you know, be useful and help him out. So there's some cool changes that they've done there.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I really actually like what they've done with Ashley, you know, kind of like changing the mechanics up a little bit. And I think that instead of just having her like follow or stay, now that you can kind of have her follow close or stick far behind, and it kind of acts like a tether. And in that sense, Ashley's kind of actually moves about on her own. And makes her own decisions. There's more like AI at work here, so she'll make the right decision to kind of stay away from enemies. And it's just, you know, how much tether are you giving her to do that? And so, you know, there's kind of a, stick close behind me while we're trying to run past enemies, or, you know, get back behind me and basically stay out of range of the enemies. And I also like that, you know, instead of having to manage her health bar and having to like continually feed her herbs, it works a little bit differently. She just gets incapacitated now. And so when you get a chance, you lift her back up, and then that's it. You know, you don't have to worry about it. But, you know, the enemies can still get her while she's incapacitated. And sometimes they'll just come up and they'll just like steal her away and start taking her away. And you're like, oh shit, you hear her scream and you're like, oh, okay, let me go get her. But I like how they're able to add that tension, you know, maintain that part of it. Preserve the idea of having to, you know, basically be her escort and her bodyguard, but give her a little bit more agency and a little bit more to do. And I definitely feel like her voice performance is a lot better here than in the original as well. Want to cycle
Definitely
back?
Improvement, yeah.
Yeah, it is an improvement, and that can't be said for all of the voice performances in this game. We'll get to that. But yeah, she was definitely an improvement. But cycling back to something you said earlier about how this game is kind of basically re-adding some of the more survival horror aspects, because Resident Evil 4 originally was the game that kind of moved the series towards the more action horror, you know, and it is a good middle ground between, say, like the first 3 Resident Evil and like Resident Evil 5 and 6, from what I hear. But what I noticed was that, they were even kind of trying to toe that balance a little bit more here, especially in the opening section of the game. So, like, the village, like you said, is pretty much exactly like it was in the original, and that's good. But right up until that point, and this was in the Chainsaw demo as well, which I played through and had a blast while I was waiting for this to come out. I like how that whole first house has been hugely expanded, and kind of like what they did with the Resident Evil 2 remake, where they basically darkened it up and made it a little bit more scary, right?
Yeah, a lot of this game takes place at night now, like the opening scenes and that house. The fact that there's a whole basement now that you can go explore. They've made the enemy AI a lot smarter. They're way faster now. They're actually hard to hit sometimes. And there have been so many times that I'll go to shoot an enemy charging at me and I'll miss, and they'll just come and like impale me with a pitchfork. So yes. It's really intensive. Ash, you're playing on PS5, right?
Yes, I am. So, yeah, I finally did get a PS5, and this is basically the first game that I pre-ordered for the
Nice.
PS5. The first game that I was anticipating to play on PS5, and it is an incredible experience. The load times are almost non-existent. It is so fast, so smooth. I don't have a 4K TV anyway, so I just switched it on to performance mode, and those 60 frames are awesome. It really helps with the fluidity of combat.
Yeah, we don't have we're not publishing the video version of this, but I've got a projector behind me with some images, and I played a bit of it last night on my projector, and in my game room I have a big blank wall that I looked at yesterday. I was like, wait a second, I can use my projector on this. And so it's not a 4K projector, but it's if you want just like a big giant like gaming experience, it's really cool. So I'm gonna play some of that on the projector tonight as it gets a bit darker. But it's really such a really well done on PS5. You can go between resolution or performance. Resolution, it'll run at 4K. You can turn ray tracing on or off. Frame rate, I'm really happy with the frame rate. It is somewhere in the 40s if you're running at 4K. If you are then on performance, it'll run at 60. So I've been kind of bouncing between those, but mostly using the 4K, which has just looked really, really great on. The ray tracing doesn't make as much of a difference, I've noticed, mostly in like the water reflection areas, but the majority of the game, it's not something you'll necessarily notice. So you could leave that on or off depending on your preference. Ash, are you playing through on normal difficulty or hardcore difficulty?
Normal, because the hardcore actually says that it's better for like people who have played through the original Resident Evil 4, and I haven't. Now I've played through quite a bit of it, but I felt that the normal difficulty, and most of the time I start games on the medium difficulty, just depending on what it is. So yeah, and I actually did turn the ray tracing on. I guess it does let you do that in performance mode still, and I thought that was pretty cool, like the reflections and whatnot. And there was also like another setting with like Leon's hair.
Yeah.
Kind of wondering why those were turned off by default. Like, why wouldn't you
So
have those on?
yeah, the settings, I forget exactly what they're called, but you can either make his hair be just like one thing that like moves together, or you can have like strands of hair that kind of move individually. So I turned it on the strands of hair, and honestly, it looks a little strange to me. I kept it on that setting, so I haven't moved it back yet, partially because you can only change the graphics settings from the main menu. You can't just do it in the game. And so every time I go to play, I don't think to change it, and then I don't want to back out to do it. But yeah, it's funny how that is like its own graphics setting is Leon's hair, and how you can adjust that to, respond the way you want to.
Yeah, yeah. I also like what they've done with the combat. I think it definitely feels a lot more fluid, less stiffness. I mean, obviously, we don't have the tank controls anymore. We're dealing with more modern third-person shooter controls. But I like how you can kind of weave in and out, between enemies. But I feel like on the flip side, the enemies are also able to hit you a little bit easier now. And like you said, I mean, they'll come at you with that pitchfork from pretty far away. And like in the original, where like I was sure I'd be able to like run through this crowd of enemies, now in the remake, it's like, no, one or two of them will probably grab you on your way out. You can't just juggernaut past them anymore. But they did add a couple things to make, I guess, the experience a little bit easier. One of those is the parry mechanic, which I actually am a huge fan of.
I am too. I haven't used it as much as I should, but there are some parts in the game, especially going up against the chainsaw guys, where it can be extremely useful. I just got to a section of the game that I won't spoil for anyone here, but for anyone who's familiar with the original, they might know what part I'm talking about. But the parry mechanic is hugely important for at least this one particular scene in a battle. So that was something that if you hadn't used it up to that point, it makes it really necessary to need to practice with and get good at to be able to move the story forward.
Yeah, and there are actually some like attacks in the game, like with the chainsaw guy, that you have to parry. I mean, otherwise it will kill you. So, and usually there'll be kind of an indicator on screen that'll let you know, hey, this attack is going to kill you. I mean, there are enemies that'll fucking chomp your head off.
Yep.
if you let them. So I do like how there is that little parry mechanic. Some of the boss enemies also even have kind of like a dodge mechanic that you can hit by hitting the crouch button.
hmm
Would
Yeah, the some of the death animations in this game are so brutal. Leon will get decapitated. I've had his eyes poked out by enemies. I've been eviscerated by the chainsaw. I've been eaten by the lake monster. There's just so many different and creative ways to die. The dodge mechanics are they're cool when they allow them, but the game is like purposely designed to not allow you to have that level of fluidity. Definitely more than the original game. But there are moments where like I just want to roll out of the way, and this game doesn't allow you to do that.
No.
So it's they've nearly eliminated quick time events for the most part. So you don't need to. If you don't like those in the original, then don't worry, they're not really back for this. But there are some semi-optional ones that allow you, if you want to parry or dodge an attack, those prompts will sometimes come up on screen. And if you're fast enough, you can avoid taking some damage, which has been hugely helpful for certain parts of the game.
Yeah. And I think that they've actually taken a couple cues from like Resident Evil 2 Remake in particular. I didn't play the 3 Remake, but I'm assuming it's kind of the same there. But, you know, with the knife and Resident Evil 2 Remake, knives were like a sub-item that you like kept on you. And so like if an enemy grabbed you, you could quickly poke them and it would use up the durability of the knife. A lot of those mechanics have returned here. So Leon has his combat knife, and it does have a durability now. This is a change from the original game, and so you have to be a little bit more careful. And so, like, if an enemy grabs you from behind, or grabs you even from the front, like if you have an opportunity to slice him in the neck, you can take that, but you're also going to take a huge durability on that knife, and also parrying some of those attacks that would have killed you. You know, you got to think, you know, do I have can I just kind of run out of the way of this attack and sort of dodge it, or do I have to use up that durability? You can also come up from behind enemies and do a stealth kill. That combined with the new crouch mechanic, which wasn't in the original game, allows you to kind of approach things from a more tactical standpoint, which is cool. I think that's something we said about the Resident Evil 2 remake that they did well, was kind of, you know, adding a little bit more of a tactical nature to the game, and I think that this game follows suit with that. So I like how Leon has the combat knife, and you can upgrade. I definitely upgraded the durability and the power on that as quickly as I possibly could. But the Leon can also pick up like kitchen knives and boot knives as backup, so that if the combat knife breaks, you have something that you can use.
Yeah, so I've approached it in a different way. My combat knife broke, and I think I repaired it once, and I have not repaired it since. I just keep picking up the kitchen knives, and I'm using those. And then if I run out of knives, it's like, well, I'm just gonna need to not get caught then. Resident Evil does a good job of mitigating a chronic gamer problem of holding on to your items till like the very final boss or till the end of the game. I use everything in my arsenal, and this is some like classic RE4 strategies. Ammo management is always going to be a part of the strategy. Resident Evil 4 gives you more ammo than the previous Resident Evil games. You also get like the attache case attachments and charms that allow you to expand the amount of ammo that you can craft or the drops that you get. So those have been helpful as well. So I've been pumping everything I've got into expanding the amount of handgun ammo I can get. I got the Punisher early on in the game. I just recently fully upgraded it and unlocked the exclusive perk for that, which allows it to blast through 5 enemies at a time. The Punisher is my favorite handgun in the game, and it's the one that I will use through the end and in subsequent playthroughs. The Blacktail is good. It has a fast firing rate, and it handles really well, but the ability to punch through enemies multiples at a time actually helps you conserve on ammunition and makes it hugely helpful. It also punches through shields, which is really helpful for the castle sections. But I have purchased one of every type of gun in the game. There's some that I don't use as often. I don't pull the TMP out as much, but you're gonna pick up ammo drops for those guns anyways. So for me, especially in boss battles, I want to have as much ammunition that I can throw at these guys as possible. And having the different numbers of guns makes it easier to do that. And as you go through I use just about every gun in the game. I switch between the shotgun and the rifle and the pistol. I bought the Broken Butterfly, the Magnum, when that was available, and I purposely held on to that. Again, being familiar with the original game, there is a like mini boss battle that is semi-optional. You can either evade this enemy until an elevator arrives, and then you can get on the elevator and escape, or you can stand your ground and fight. But if you fight, it is the arguably the toughest boss battle, if not the toughest in terms of difficulty. He absorbs the most damage of any other boss in the game, to the point where the first few times I played through this game, I didn't think it was possible to kill him because he just absorbs damage so much. So I saved my Magnum for that, and I launched 8 Magnum bullets into him, and then nearly cleared out the rest of my arsenal before I finally took him down. And it took me 3 or 4 times to do that, and it was definitely worth it. You get on PlayStation 5, you get an achievement for doing that, and you also get an item as well. So it's for completionists, you'll definitely want to go through and battle him. At the same time, if you want to wait until you have some of like the upgraded super weapons and future playthroughs, you can definitely do that. I was just going crazy and wanted to take him down for real on my first run through, and I'm playing on hardcore mode, so every like hit I get was taking down a lot of my health, and it's been tough. I've died so many times in this game. The cabin scene with Louis Serra when you're just under assault, that took me like multiple attempts over the course of 2 days to be able to clear, because I just kept getting overrun, and crowd control is the biggest like concern in this game. So I always try to keep grenades handy, particularly and Ash, this is something you just realized, was flash grenades, and how incredibly helpful flash grenades are. So definitely good to keep your arsenal well stocked and ready to go, but also not be afraid to use those items when you need to.
You're here looking for someone? Maybe. Some missing señorita?
Ashley, where are you?
Your soul requires cleansing.
Ashley Graham, are you in here?
Just let me go.
Listen. I'm hearing the president's orders and...
What is that? What do we do?
The last lambs are escaping.
We need to go! I'm gonna get you home safe.
You can stop right there.
Ada, who are you? And what are you doing here?
My faithful disciple will show her the path.
Ashley, run!
The entire world shall overflow with his grace.
What's happening to me?
Now, abandon your body.
Leave the girl. She's lost no matter what.
Now that he has chosen death.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I do think that both the original and remake of Resident Evil 4 definitely encourage the use of ammunition a lot more than in the Resident Evil games that I've played. The game actually gives you a ton of ammo. In fact, there's less of that like clearing every room vibe. I mean, there's really not even any indicator that you have or haven't cleared a room. More so, it's like these ammo pickups will just kind of come after killing enemies or after breaking barrels and boxes and vases. So like these resources are kind of are renewable in a sense. There's not like a finite amount in the game like in the first few Resident Evil games. So I actually really enjoyed that the game actually kind of lets you just go all out. I think that I'm drawing a lot of similarities with Resident Evil Village, which is one of the other ones that I've actually completed. Actually, I feel like Resident Evil Village was very similar to 4, and that was intentional, being a little bit more action heavy, but towing the balance and still being, survival horror. But yeah, and I also like how you can pretty much keep up to 8 weapons on you. I mean, the game gives you 8 slots to use for quick selecting weapons, which is really cool. I want to say in Resident Evil 2 Remake, it was just the 4, right?
I think it was just 4 slots if I'm remembering correctly.
And then 4 sub items.
Yeah, so it's awesome that they've expanded that, and there are so many fun guns to use in this game. So like I have all 4 of my slots filled, and I could honestly use a couple more. So it's really helpful to have those and just switch between weapons quickly.
Well, this one gives you 8. I mean, because you have 2 in each direction, which is cool. So that to me suggested that you're supposed to keep all of those weapons on you. And like of course, in this game, there's no distinction with like the sub weapons. The L1 is just for the knife, and so like all the grenades are actually mapped to the regular weapon wheel. But I kind of felt like the game was encouraging you to hold all of these weapons, so I was upgrading my inventory as soon as I was able to, and I like how the game actually gives you an opportunity to do that. At pretty much every point in the game where you would start to be running out of inventory space, you can buy the more inventory space. You can buy a bigger case from the merchant, which is nice. So I didn't really have any inventory issues in this game, although inventory management is important. But having played through a few Resident Evil games, I kind of know what I'm doing. You kind of just keep the herbs on you until you need space or you need a more powerful herb, and then you can start crafting them to give yourself more space. And I love the auto sort mechanic. That's a lifesaver. I'm constantly auto sorting my inventory because it'll organize the items in a way that is most efficient, so you can carry the most items. And yeah, you can easily carry 8 weapons on you, no problem. Plus their mods and ammo, and that's really nice. One of the new weapons I actually was kind of impressed with that I liked was the bolt thrower.
Yeah, the bolt thrower has been good for dealing with individual enemies, and it's helpful, especially in the beginning, to conserve some of that ammunition. I don't use it as much in the later part of the game, but if there's ever just one enemy I need to pick off, then yeah, I'll switch to that, and I'll take my time to take him down, or at least get him down to where 1 or 2 shots will finish him off.
Yeah, the bolt thrower is nice because the ammo can be retrieved, and it's good for stealth approaches too because it doesn't make a whole lot of noise. But you can also attach mines, which obviously won't help with stealth and won't allow you to retrieve the bolt. But that's also good for crowd control. I mean, you can kind of use that in lieu of a grenade or a shotgun blast. And I feel like it's a little bit less expensive that way as well. So the bolt thrower was a cool, fun item. For me, I kind of mostly stick with, like the handgun, the shotgun, and the rifle. Like you, I don't use the TMP so much, but like if I'm getting a lot of ammo, like I always have it on me. So if I'm getting a lot of ammo, I'll start to kind of use it a little bit. But I've always been a sniper and shotgun guy. So I enjoyed being able to like pick enemies off from a distance and then come in close and like crowd control with the shotgun. I mean, even the handguns in this game are pretty good. I mean, you can add the laser attachment to either the Punisher or Leon's custom handgun, the SG09R, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. All good weapons. Like you, I recognized the usefulness of the Punisher once I got to the castle. Right. Being able to pierce through those shields.
Yeah, it's so helpful, and the diversity of the weapons, and they've added some new ones for this game, so there have been some nice surprises there of what's different from the original. And I haven't looked into what the like unlockable special weapons are and what's different there, or what the unlock requirements are. So I'm going to dig into all of that once I complete the main story, which might be this weekend. I'm on chapter 12 right now, and there's probably several more hours for me to go. And I'm taking my time. Like, I'm at a point in the game where I've kind of cleared out all the enemies in my area, so I'm just exploring and collecting treasures and this is a really cool way that this game encourages you to do that and allows you to do that. There are requests from the merchant that allow you to go a little bit out of your way to get these spinels or spinels. I never actually learned how to correctly pronounce that. But those can now be used instead of just selling them for 1,000 pesetas. You can trade them in for something that is more helpful or more useful. The Punisher is actually one of the guns you can unlock with those as a special thing. So there are definitely some really good changes at work here. The way that you can upgrade the guns is mostly similar. They've changed some aspects, and I feel like even some powers of different weapons, but they've adapted it to make it work well with what the current game is. Ash, have there been any specific parts of this game where you found you were dying over and over again, or have you found it to be a pretty fair playthrough and you've been able to get through the enemies pretty well?
Most of the time I've been able to get through the enemies pretty well. I'll tell you the parts of the game that I had the most difficulty with was probably the initial village segment. Although not as big of an issue as I had, I guess, in the original. I guess I'd kind of learned the layout and where you go and, the best path to kind of get through that. And really, I mean, you just kind of have to just hold them at bay until, the bell rings. I did learn that you can shoot the bell if you have it's going to be easier in a subsequent playthrough if you have the rifle on you with the fully upgraded scope. But apparently you can shoot the bell and trigger the enemies to go away, which is really cool. I didn't even know that was a thing. So that part, the villa section where you are barricading the house, that took me a few tries. Also fighting Mendez, and I'll tell you, I actually fucked up bad. So I finally beat Mendez, the village chief, and then his little eye pops out. Well, then Ashley comes in and she's like, "Hey, come out the window." So I'm like, "Okay." And then I realized I left the eye in the building. Well, I looked it up, and apparently the eye is not completely necessary for progress, and in the original it is a sellable item. But and so at first I was okay with it, but then I got to the next section and I really needed that money. So I was like, all right, let me fight him again. So that took a few more tries again, so that I could get the damn false eye and sell it.
I somehow defeated the village chief on my first attempt, and I was expecting to die many times because he is another good level check in this game, and he's definitely increases his difficulty. But I think I was so familiar with his attacks and fighting style, and they haven't changed too much. Yeah. So I was able to evade him, keep my distance, and just keep the damage up as I was going along. I definitely died a whole lot at the cabin scene with Lewis as you're trying to defend against that. I died many times, a little past the part where you're currently at, Ash. There's like an underground area of the castle, and there are some really challenging parts where enemies just keep on coming. There are some bug enemies that I hate. I've hated them in the original, and I hate them again now. It's way better when you have an unlimited ammo weapon and you can just take them all down. But when you're trying to conserve and be smart, it's difficult to do that. But I've been having a blast with it. I clear the original game without any special weapons, usually in about 10 hours. I'm on, I think, 19 hours right now, and I'm still I'm in the castle, so I'm at the tail end of the castle, but it's something where there's just a lot more to do in this game. And
like the requests, like you mentioned earlier,
Yeah, I took time to go hunt down a bird because the merchant wanted an item that the bird had stolen. So it makes it gamifies it more. It's just the game is so cool, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it makes it just comical at times, and it's great. It's why it's been so loved for so long, and I'm so excited with how well this remake kills it. I'm having a blast playing on PS5. When it goes on sale on PC, I'll probably pick it up on PC too, because I want to see how my PC can handle it. But it looks great and plays great, and it's just such a good time.
Hell yeah, man! On the fact that the game doesn't take itself seriously, I kind of wanted to bring that up because I like that so many of like the iconic, like cheesy lines were actually kept in the game. There was one in particular that you mentioned on a previous episode, the bingo line. Where'd everybody go? Bingo?
Yeah.
And that's
I'm
in the
so
game.
happy
They kept
they
it
kept
in.
that in. They
Leon's
kept that.
one-liners.
Yeah, they kept that line, and then they removed the ballistics line that Luis has when he's referring to Ashley in a not derogatory, but in a suggestive way. So they're,
Yeah.
they've kept some, and then they cut some out.
Kind of glad that they did that because, like, I mean, I feel like the original Ashley was objectified a little bit more than was necessary in the original game. Of course, I mean, I think it also does kind of add to Luis's character and makes him seem like a little bit more of a scoundrel that he would make a comment about that. But I guess Capcom decided to kind of play it safe and not have that. And that's good. It kind of gives Ashley a little bit more agency and, more of a character than a sex object, which is nice. Also, to the chagrin, I guess, of a lot of gamers, there are no more panty shots.
There aren't. No, I was gonna say I noticed that as if I looked. I haven't actually tried to look, but they just the design of her outfit. I realized, like in the original, she's literally in just like a short skirt and nothing else. And this one, there's the clothing design or costume design is it's detailed in a way so that it's like, oh yeah, you can't just look up her skirt if you want to. So yeah, they've adapted it, I think, in ways to make it more tolerable for a 2023 audience.
Yeah, so apparently there's this huge copy pasta. I think I shared it in our shitposting group about how somebody was really pissed about I don't know if it was ironic or not, but somebody was really pissed about the panty shots. It's really what's really funny is if you go look up the reviews for this game. I mean, right when this came out, the critics were raving about it. It was getting perfect scores, 10 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, so it was like, okay, yeah, this might actually be really good. But now if you go look at the audience scores on like Metacritic, what you'll see is it's a kind of mix. It's in that yellow area, but go look at the reviews and here's what you'll see. 10, 10, 10, 10,
Mm-hmm.
10, 10, 0. Okay, what does this 0 review say? And it's like some bullshit about like not being able to see Ashley's panties or changing a few character lines that just
Oh my God.
don't work as well in a 2023 context. And I'm like, really? Like, even if like that's going to detract a couple points for you, you're going to give the game a 0 because they removed a line of dialogue that worked better in 2005 than in 2023? Like, come on, man. So
yeah. Gamers, man, I hate gamers sometimes. Just I myself am a gamer and I'm a Star Wars fan, and I also like hate both of those groups because there's just so much toxicity, and it's like whenever someone's like, oh, like I'm a Star Wars fan, I always need to like double check and be like, so what do you mean by that?
What do you
because it's just been it's so the whole just toxicity of it has been difficult. But the changes, I mean, so like the character of Luis, he is so much better in this game. You spend more time with him. They built out his character to be less of like a caricature, I feel like. And so he there's a moment in this game where I started to like actually form a connection with him, and I was like, oh, this is like a really like much better written character and a much better acted character. So he's just he's a really great companion to have. I like Ashley's character a lot better. When you are doing the shooting range after you meet Ashley, and she'll sit on the barrel and she'll like cheer you on, and when you get like a headshot, she'll call out and stuff, and it's like it's cool. It's stupid, but it's like that encouragement felt good. I was like, oh, I have like a cheerleader with me. This is really nice.
Hey, on the note of the shooting range, I'm actually kind of proud of myself. So the first shooting range that you get to in the game, I actually got an S rank on all 3 of those challenges. The rifle one, I actually got that S rank the first time I did it. I'm just really good with the sniper. The handgun took me a couple shots, and then the combination rifle and handgun took several tries to get through. But I did get an S rank on all of those, and I was quite proud of myself. And then later on, when you get to the shooting gallery, I got an S rank on the shotgun one too. So I really love what they've done with the shooting galleries. Now, I haven't played that part in the original game, so I don't really have anything to compare it with, but I am enjoying the shooting gallery. I mean, it was just really fun to just kind of like get away from the main story for a little bit and just shoot shit. And and then whenever you get to the bonus round, that music is so fucking good.
Oh, it's so cool. I've been wondering for a while if the merchant has to pay Salazar like a lease to be able to set up shop in his castle and like operate these shooting ranges. Like it makes no sense. Like why is he not targeted by the enemies? Why is he allowed to do business here?
Well, he's a Ganado, isn't he? Like I think people have said like if you look at his eyes, like he's a Ganado, he's just a friendly one for some reason.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that detail. I think I don't think it lets you aim at him in this one, but maybe if you're far enough away. In the original, though, you can straight up kill him, and then he'll still show up the next time you're supposed to go see him.
But never in that spot, which led to some questions about whether there were multiple merchants or something. And I think if you play on like the harder difficulty, if you kill him, he never comes back.
I'm not sure about that. I would need to double check that because that would be interesting. But I think that the merchant would always be in the next spot. But yeah, if you zoom in the original game and look at his eyes, they're very like red and bloodshot, and it looks very much like the Ganados. So he's infected in some way with that. But there's the shooting range is so cool. I think there are 4 shooting ranges total. And I've done 3 of them, and I've been able to S rank each game in each one. So there are 9 games total I've S ranked. Nice. And again, that's a PS5 trophy that I'm going for is S ranking all of them. I've been getting better at them. The first one took me way too long to S rank each one. I was also I was focusing on getting all of the little medallions in the first one, which took a super long time to hit all of those. And then now that I'm not going for those medallions and I'm just going for a high score that will get me an S rank, it has been admittedly easier. And I think the combo in the first one of the rifle and the pistol, I did look up a YouTube video to see a strategy of someone who did S rank it because I was just having a lot of trouble with that. The second shooting range, I did a little bit better. And then the third one, I was surprised. It only took me a few tries on each one to S rank. And so I don't know if they're getting easier or if I'm getting better. So it's cool to kind of see the progress as you go along. And in the original game, the shooting range, you would get these like trophies, basically, these bottle caps. And they were cool, but they didn't do anything. And this one, you can get tokens that you can then unlock to get charms that attach to your case, and they give you special perks. So right now, between my 3 charms, I have 2 that are dedicated to the efficiency of the green herbs. So every green herb I use gives me 60% more health than it would normally. So they're incredibly helpful and can help a lot with resource management as you go through.
Yeah, and there's kind of a little bit more of like a gotcha mechanic with those now. So you can continue to replay the shooting range and get more charms, which is actually really cool. On the topic of the merchant, because we got into it a little bit, how do you feel like his performance here compares to the original and that of Leon as well? Because I mean, both of those were the same voice actor, I believe, in the original.
Well, gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger. I love him. He threw me off a little bit when I first met him because his voice is different and his the way he like phrases things is different. But now I love him. I've heard him speak enough. And he has so many different lines. I feel like his voice lines have been well expanded beyond what they were in the original. And he says he has like a new greeting for you and he'll say different stuff. Yeah. And then he has a different line for like each gun you buy. And it's just so cool. I love him. He's one of the best like characters in gaming for me.
Tuning weapons to suit your specific needs. What are you buying? What are you
literally
selling?
when he said that, like, oh, we're trying to get a sense of your taste. It's like I had literally, I think it was the Punisher and or no, it was the riot gun. I had sold my shotgun and bought the riot gun because I like the riot gun a lot better. It's also just a better gun in general. But that's when he said, he's like, oh, we're getting a sense of your taste. I was like, yes, this is my taste because I do like this gun quite a bit. Though in this playthrough, I did sell the riot gun and pick up the striker, which I don't like the look of it as much. But for this first playthrough, I think it's better suited for crowd control if you are getting up close with a bunch of enemies at once.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently you can actually sell your weapons back and get back everything that you spent on upgrading the weapon too now, which is good.
Yeah, so I looked into that because I wanted to see. So I upgraded something on the shotgun, and I checked the sale price before and after the upgrade. And the resale after I upgraded, I lost maybe like 750 pesetas on the upgrade, but I got the vast majority of it back, and it was like a 20,000 peseta upgrade. So you don't get 100% back, but you get a lot, like to the point where just upgrade everything. I used to not trade my guns until I got the one that I knew I was using for the rest of the game. So like I put nothing into the original shotgun, and if I had known that you could just get it all back, I would have upgraded that more and then just sold it and put it into the riot gun.
Yeah, and there's a charm actually that'll at least one that'll increase the resale value, which is nice. But yeah, back onto the performances. I definitely feel like the voice actor for the merchant and then the voice actor for Leon, it definitely feels like they're trying to emulate the original performances. So it's very close, but just a little bit off. So for people that some people might be a little bit disappointed it's not the original voices, but it is the same voice actor for Leon that was in Resident Evil 2 remake, and I think he does a great job. He kind of sounds pretty similar. I mean, Leon's voiced by, I think, between like Resident Evil 2 and 4, a couple different voice actors anyway. So
they did a good job, and he sounds very similar to what he was in the original game. So the voice actor is doing a really good job there. The voice acting in general, I've been happy with. They've removed a good amount of the campy and silly parts of it. Lord Sadler is like the main villain in this game. And in the original, you have several meetings with him throughout the game, but he's much more of a mysterious figure this time around, and he kind of lurks in the shadows, and you just get glimpses of him here and there. So I'm really excited to see what they've done with Lord Sadler as I get later into the game. Because for people playing for the first time, like he's not like a character that you really see all that much. So it'll be cool to see what they do with him.
One common criticism I hear is that Ada's voice actor kind of feels like she's what's the word? What's the term for when a voice actor just isn't like, or an actor just isn't performing as well? Like they're just kind of checking it in, like reining it in,
phoning it in,
phoning it in. That's the phrase I'm looking for.
Yep.
I guess I haven't like played enough of her cutscenes to really notice. I mean, she seems fine to me, but I noticed like that was one of the more, I guess, legitimate criticisms I've seen people say is that her voice performance wasn't as good. And I don't know if they're using the same actress from Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't had an issue with her voice performance. It's definitely different from the original. They also changed her outfit look. In the original, she's in this red dress, which admittedly is like ridiculous. Why is she fighting in this like village and everything in this red dress? So they've made her outfit to be much more tactical but still stylish at the same time.
Yeah.
And a change that I hope they would make in regards to Leon's outfit. I love his coat in the beginning of the game, and I want to keep it. But his coat always gets stolen, and you can't get it back. And I want some way to be able to hang on to his coat throughout the game.
That would be cool. That coat is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed to see that in both versions of the game that goes away. I mean, I wonder if you can, in subsequent playthroughs, you can just keep the coat on the whole time. Like if that's one of the costumes you can do.
I hope so. And if they don't have it, they should definitely update it with more DLC later. Resident Evil 4 has always been known for unlocking all of these super weapons by meeting different criteria throughout the game, whether it's beating a game under a certain amount of time, beating like mercenaries and doing really well in there, separate ways, which you could play as Ada, which is most likely coming to the Resident Evil 4 remake. I think a data miner found some references to that earlier, so we'll probably get that at some point. Mercenaries will be coming up, I think, within a week, just about. So that will be a really fun mode to play. It's unclear if you'll need to beat the game to unlock that, but most likely you will. But the thing with Resident Evil 2 and 3 is after they've been out for a while, instead of unlocking all of these guns, you could go and just pay like a $5 fee for the DLC and it would unlock everything. And I'm very curious if Resident Evil 4 will follow through with that. Probably, because I imagine Capcom likes money and they probably make a lot of money that way. So it's a question for someone like me who has unlocked everything in this game over and over and over again. Do I want to go through and attempt to do that again, or do I just want to pay the $5, save myself the time, and then just have fun with all these unlockable weapons? So there's some decisions to be made if and when those options are available.
Yeah, and some people are going to complain about that. I mean, microtransactions and whatnot. But the way I see it is, in the modern gaming era, I guess that makes sense. We don't have things like cheat codes anymore, for instance. So, just being able to kind of like buy your way through. You know what? Whatever. It's a single player game, so.
Yeah. I mean, just have fun. Like, do it however which way you want. That's games that give you the choice to do that. It's like people can just play them the way they want to play. Yeah, I was gonna do a caveat there because sometimes I do see there are certain games people play them and I'm like, really, you're gonna play it that way? Why would you do that? But no, the games are fun and people should play them for fun and enjoy it. And if you don't want to play it a certain way, you don't have to. That's the beauty of having the game.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, I think I had the biggest blast with GoldenEye with cheat codes. It was just more fun with the cheat codes on, playing with friends, getting like really high and just turning on invisibility, and then your friend being like, "Hey, did you turn on invisibility, you bastard?" Hell, Superman 64 is actually playable with cheat codes.
It's so much fun. But I'm psyched about this remake. I don't think sales data has been released yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is doing exceptionally well. Not only has Resident Evil been able to build its fan base, especially with the Resident Evil 2 remake, but it has Resident Evil 4 is such a cult classic that I feel like this would motivate a lot of people who don't typically play games to pick this up. One of my best friends, we grew up playing games together. He has since gotten out of it. He's a father now and deals with all that. But he bought Resident Evil 4 day one. It is like, this is one of my favorite games. I'm gonna beat it. And he has already beaten it and is playing through it. I think he's beaten it twice actually. So that's where I feel a little behind on this game because it came out the same day as PAX East. And so I spent the whole weekend covering PAX when I would have just been playing Resident Evil 4. So this weekend is the second weekend it's out, and this is my opportunity to just dedicate a whole heck of a lot of time to playing through and completing this game. And it's been fun. I've been having a blast with it. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what like the end stages of the game are going to look like.
Fucking A, man. Well, yeah, we're sitting at over an hour now. I think 8 minutes left on this Zoom recording as well. So I think we just had a lot to talk about. We were very passionate, and we managed to do so without getting into spoilers, which is good. But I guess let's sort of wrap things up here. And what are your final thoughts on this game, Dan?
Resident Evil 4 Remake is an excellent remake. It is one of the best games released so far this year. I would not be surprised to see it make some Game of the Year lists in December as we go along. And yeah, if you're a fan of the original, definitely pick this up and check it out. It is absolutely worth the price of admission. And if you've never played Resident Evil 4, you are in for a delight. And this has been really well optimized for a modern gaming audience. So yeah, any survival horror fan, anyone who wants to get into Resident Evil, I highly recommend you pick it up. Even if you haven't played the others, Resident Evil 4 does a good job of standing on its own. And really, the opening cinematic gives you like all the 30 seconds of backstory that you need, and then you're into this unique story. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, I love this game. It is so great, and I'm really happy that this remake kicks as much ass as it does.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I will say I think this is the highest quality Resident Evil game I've played so far. I still think that Resident Evil 2 Remake is probably my favorite. But like in terms of quality, and this is just really setting the bar here. I think it's done a really fantastic job of not only preserving what made the original work, but adapting that and making it more accessible to a modern audience. And I'm really excited to see where Capcom goes with the franchise from here. So yeah, I mean, I'm midway through the Resident Evil 4 remake and the original game. I am enjoying the hell out of it. I think that so far it has just been a fantastic experience.
Definitely agreed. And I hope the biggest thing I want to see, apart from a new Resident Evil game, is take this engine and do a full remake of the original Resident Evil. I want to explore the Spencer Mansion in an over-the-shoulder perspective with full camera controls. If they do that, and I feel like it's an inevitability, it's just a question of when. But hopefully, before this decade is through, we will see a full remake of Resident Evil, the original.
A lot of people are
That's what I'm
saying
hoping will come.
we should do like a remake, like
Yeah.
or a remake, I should say. I don't disagree. I mean, because the Resident Evil 1 remake that we have is really good. But it does stick to the style of the original game. And so I would like to see what we could do with a behind-the-shoulder RE engine remake of that game. Really, what I want to see next from Resident Evil, I want to see Capcom do a remake of Code Veronica. I mean, I'd rather see them do that or RE1 remake again before we get into like 5 and 6, right?
Definitely agreed. And I haven't played Code Veronica, so that would be a really great experience for me to go through and check that game out.
Well, and that's exactly my point too, because I've played a little bit of Code Veronica, but not a whole lot. So I would love to see a remake of it because, one, a lot of people are asking for it. It's supposedly the true sequel to Resident Evil 2, at least in terms of Claire's storyline. And so it would be a great opportunity for me to be able to play through that game, with modernized control scheme and whatnot. But anyway, with Resident Evil 4, I think that, like you said, this is a fantastic entry point. I think as a Resident Evil fan, like no matter like where you are with the series, I think you can play through this game. I played through this as somebody who had not played the original and played through this. I recommend playing this. You don't have to have played the original. If you have played the original, play it because you're going to enjoy the experience a lot more. Like you said, and being able to compare and contrast the two. If you haven't played through any of the earlier Resident Evil entries, that's fine. If you haven't played through the later ones, that's fine. It doesn't matter like where you are. If this is your first Resident Evil game or which ones that you've played, I think that this is a fantastic game for anybody to pick up and play, and kind of stands on its own pretty well.
Definitely agreed. If you've enjoyed the Dead Space remake, this is definitely like a similar level of quality, and it's just a really great time for survival horror. So definitely thank you all for tuning in who have made it this far. I hope you're enjoying Resident Evil 4, and if you haven't picked it up yet, definitely consider it because it is a really fantastic game and just a whole lot of fun.
Hell yeah, man. Well, real quick here, do you want to plug your show, plug Victims and Villains and your work on Tech Raptor? Where can our listeners find you?
I would love to. So you can check us out on Victims and Villains, where we cover pretty much everything in pop culture, and we also do it from the lens of mental health and helping to prevent suicide prevention and awareness. And find me over at Tech Raptor. I write news, reviews, previews, everything like that. I might have something going up around Resident Evil 4, but I'm also taking just a little bit of a mental break at the moment. PAX was a whole lot, so trying to kind of recharge my batteries after that. But yeah, you can take us a look over there. And if you want to follow me on Twitter for video games and other stuff, I am over there at drock6499.
Hell yeah, man. And again, thank you so much for being on. I definitely wanted you to be a part of this because you had mentioned that you're a huge fan of Resident Evil 4. Looking forward to doing Tears of the Kingdom with you in May. That's going to be a lot of fun. So very quickly, what's coming up next? April is going to be our bad game month. So we're going to be talking about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, as well as E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Not necessarily in that order, but those are the two games that we are covering as our numbered episodes. We are also doing our 420 special on Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is not a bad game, but just a very fun game to play for a stoner. And I'm really excited to get into it. And then, of course, in May, Tears of the Kingdom is coming out. That's going to be our season finale. Part 1 will be a spoiler-free take on the game, game launch episode, kind of similar to this one. And Part 2 will be our full spoilery thoughts. And after that gameplay demo that we got earlier this week, woo, I'm so fucking excited, man.
Me too. I'm going to build the dumbest, funniest stuff in that game.
Yeah, same. I won't take up too much time to talk about where you can find us. All of our links should be in the show notes. So go find us wherever you get your podcasts. We've got a few more bangers and not so bangers to talk about the remainder of this season. But thank you once again for being on, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Looking forward to everything else to come.
Fuck yeah, man. Alrighty, well, that being said, I've been Ashley Chancellor.
And I've been Dan Rockwood.
And this has been Collateral Gaming with Victims and Villains. We'll see you next time. Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.